The colony lights caught in Vrex's forward segments before the aft ones registered anything at all. Segment by segment, chrome plating flared white, then gold, then white again, each reflection a half-second behind the last, rippling down a body that suddenly could not agree on what it was seeing. 500 warships held position inside a perimeter that 30 seconds ago had not existed, and somewhere beneath that grid of ancient platforms and orbital rail lines, a voice, calm as gravity, broadcast on every frequency. Earth remembers. Stories like this are the reason we tell them. If you want to find out what Earth remembered and what it cost, stay close. Tomorrow's story goes even deeper. That same white flare, Vrex's mid-segments had tasted it before. A chemical bloom across his sensory receptors 3 days earlier, when the patrol fleet had dropped into the dead system and found nothing but a star, burning low and steady over planetary wreckage that smelled, impossibly, like warm metal. The mission briefing had called it Cleanup Sweep 7-7, a formality. The Scorth Admiralty had flagged 14 dead human systems for survey, and this one ranked lowest in priority. No energy signatures, no atmospheric markers, just rock, ice, and the skeletal remains of structures too old to identify from orbit. Vrex's forward segments had been the first to notice the transmission. Not a distress signal, not a beacon, a log, fragmented and compressed, cycling on a frequency so antiquated that the communications array almost filtered it as noise. His aft segments had been busy coordinating fleet formation, so the discovery registered unevenly across his body. By the time Segment 47 processed the data, Segment 12 had already flagged the anomaly to the bridge crew. A captain's log, human-made. Entries ran from day 1 through day 93 in neat, unremarkable sequence. Rations tracked. Equipment failures noted. Weather observations from a world with no weather worth observing. Ordinary language from ordinary people building something in the cold. Except day 47 didn't exist. The log jumped from day 46 to day 48 without comment, without redaction markers, without the formatting errors that would suggest corruption. Someone had removed that day deliberately, carefully, and never mentioned it again. Vrex's lower segments tightened against the deck plating. His upper segments kept still. The disagreement between them was visible, a chromatic ripple that his bridge crew politely ignored. He ordered a closer scan. The planet's surface returned exactly what the briefing predicted. Dead infrastructure, collapsed biodomes, a thin crust of frozen atmosphere clinging to the equator. Centuries of silence. His tactical officer, a narrow-bodied Scorth named Pale, confirmed no movement, no heat, no electromagnetic activity of any kind. So when the first light appeared on the northern ridge, Pale segments locked in a way Vrex had only seen during live combat. 1 light, then 4, then a line of them tracing the ridge like a cracked seam leaking fire. If you've ever wondered what wakes up when no one's watching, you're in the right place. Join us here. These stories aren't slowing down. Vrex commanded the fleet to hold. No approach, no withdrawal. His mid-segments were screaming to pull back, the chemical panic rolling through them segment by segment like a wave. He couldn't stop, but his forward array overrode the impulse. Chain admirals did not flee from lights. Pale's next report came clipped and strange. Movement on the surface, but not biological. Machines, systems activating in sequence, each one triggering the next. A cascade that followed a pattern too precise to be decay or malfunction. Power cores that had been cold for centuries were cycling up in order, as if reading from a checklist written before the colony went silent. Then the weapons assessment. Pale's voice flattened to a harmonic Vrex had never heard from a subordinate. The colony's defensive systems included orbital rail launchers, old human technology, crude magnetic acceleration along fixed tracks. Most species would have dismissed them. Pale did not dismiss them. Chain Admiral, Pale said, each of his segments rigid. Those rail systems launched projectiles during the colony's active period. In a vacuum, without atmospheric drag, a rail-launched slug at 10 kilometers per second does not stop. It does not slow. It continues on its trajectory indefinitely. Pale's forward segment tilted toward the display. The debris field surrounding this system is not debris. It is a minefield of rounds still in motion, launched decades or centuries ago, still crossing orbital paths at continent-crossing speed. A low hum filled the bridge, not the ship. Vrex knew every sound his vessel produced, every vibration frequency catalogued across 300 segments of lived experience aboard this hull. This sound was new, constant, sourceless, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, pressing against the chrome plating of every Scorith on the bridge, until their segments rippled in involuntary unison. Something was paying attention. Brex's aft segments registered it first. The colony wasn't malfunctioning. It wasn't random activation. The systems were waking in a sequence that matched the captain's log, day by day, entry by entry, which meant whatever they were counting toward had everything to do with the day that wasn't there. Colony light spread across the southern hemisphere in the time it took Rex's segments to complete a single synchronized pulse. Not random. Grid by grid, sector by sector, each section powering the next in a pattern that his navigation officer overlaid against the colony's original infrastructure map and found to be a perfect match. Every dormant system, every cold reactor, every sealed corridor and buried conduit, alive again, running at specifications that predated Vrex's species' first interstellar engine. Pale's tactical display refreshed, and the new data drew a sound from his segments that Vrex had no name for. The colony had not been abandoned. It had been told to sleep. 500 Scorith warships, the largest patrol fleet in the sector, hung motionless inside a defense perimeter that was older than their military doctrine. Rail platforms tracked in slow arcs along orbital paths, their magnetic accelerators warming with a whine that resonated through every hull in the fleet. Rex felt it in his lowest segments first, a harmonic that made his leg pairs stutter against the deck. Pale listed the colony's weapon systems in a voice drained of inflection. Orbital rail batteries, subsurface kinetic launch tubes, autonomous intercept drones stored in pressurized mountain vaults. And then at the bottom of the list, a device that Pale paused on for 2 full seconds before reading aloud. Chain Admiral. There is a thermal device on the colony's administrative platform. Based on its power-drawn liquid reservoir, it appears to heat water and force it through compressed organic matter at high pressure. Pale's segments rippled. It is currently targeting our flagship. Vrex did not laugh. None of his segments found it amusing, but one of them, segment 93, logged the detail anyway, because even in the middle of whatever this was, humans remained fundamentally impossible to predict. Then the broadcast. Not the hum, not the passive vibration of systems waking. A voice transmitted clean and clear across every frequency the fleet could receive, in a language so old that the translation array needed 4 seconds to parse it. 4 seconds of silence on a bridge full of Scorith who could feel each other's fear through the floor. Earth remembers. Earth always remembers. Cold. Absolute. Not a threat. Not a warning. Not a plea. A statement of fact spoken by a system that did not care whether anyone was listening, because it had been programmed to say those words on this day regardless of who occupied the space above it. How long had this been planned? Vrex's forward segments angled toward the captain's log still cycling on his display, and the answer was already there, sitting in the gap he'd been circling since the patrol began. Day 47, the missing entry. He pulled the metadata, the raw file architecture beneath the visible text, and found it. Not deleted, sealed, time-locked with a release date that converted across calendar systems and centuries of drift to today. Day 47 was the order, the day the colony received the command to enter dormancy, to shut down every visible system, to let the stars' light fall on dead rock and quiet metal until the cycle completed. The log had been damaged, it had been holding its breath, and now, back on the bridge where colony light still rippled across chrome bodies in sequence, Vrex stared at the defense grid surrounding his fleet and understood the shape of what he'd walked into. Not a trap, not aggression, a schedule. Humans had put a world to sleep and set an alarm, and his 500 warships happened to be standing in the bedroom when it went off. His segments could not agree on what to do. Forward wanted to open communications. Aft wanted to jump. Mid-body locked, paralyzed between choices. Chrome plating flickering with reflected light that pulsed in time with the colony's grid. The chain parliament that was his body held no majority. So Rex did nothing. He stood on his bridge, 300 segments of him, catching and releasing the light of a human world that had just opened its eyes. And he waited for whatever came next without knowing whether it would be a greeting or a broadside. On his display, the captain's log cycled past. Day 48, day 49, day 50, each entry ordinary, each entry calm, all of them orbiting the single day that had never been there. The sealed heart of a silence that had lasted centuries and ended, precisely on time, with Rex standing inside it. The log kept cycling, the colony kept breathing, and the gap where day 47 should have been glowed on his screen like a closed eye, patient and absolute, offering nothing. If that missing day unsettles you the way it unsettles Rex, subscribe to the channel. We find stories like this every day, and some of them are worse. The next one is already waiting.